dry up like a raisin in the sun? Or does it fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat? Or does it crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Does it sag like a heavy load? Or does it explode? Welcome to the Life and Times of Dr. King. I want you to enjoy yourselves. If you feel like clapping, clap. If you feel like laughing, laugh. You know, if you want to wave your hand when the music's playing like you're at a concert. Okay? When I engage you, when I ask you to do something, I want you to respond. And at this time, Kevin's going to tell us about how wonderful the world is that we live in. Kevin II, give him a hand as he comes. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, the bright blessed days and the dark sacred nights. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, and I watch them grow. They'll know much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Kevin Johnson II. It's good to see all of you here tonight. In spite of a storm warning, you reveal that you are determined to go on anyhow. Something is happening in Memphis. Something is happening in our world. You know, we were to take a panoramic view of a whole human history up until now. The Almighty would turn and look at me and say, Martin Luther King Jr., which age would you like to live in? I'd take mental flight past Egypt, home to the Red Sea, but in spite of its magnificence, I wouldn't stop there. Come on up even to the early Greek and Roman empires, and I'd watch Plato and Aristotle, Aristophanes, Euripides, and Aristophanes as they assemble around the Parthenon. But I wouldn't stop there. Come on up even to the age of Martin Luther, and watch him as he tacked his 95 Theses on the door of the Wittenberg Church. But I wouldn't stop there. Come on up even to 1863. Watch a vacillating president by the name of Abraham Lincoln finally come to the conclusion that he had to sign the Emancipation Proclamation. But I wouldn't stop there. Come on up even to the early 1930s. Watch a man grappling with the bankruptcy of his nation come with an eloquent cry, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself." But I wouldn't stop there. Strangely enough, I would turn to the Almighty and I would say, "You allow me to live just a few years into the second half of the 20th century, I will be happy." Now that's a strange statement. Because the world's all messed up, confusion's in the land, that's a strange statement. But only when it's dark enough can you see the stars. God is moving in the second half of the 20th century, and whether we're in Accra, Ghana, Kenya, Nairobi, New York City, Jackson, Mississippi, or Memphis, Tennessee, the cry is still the same. We want to be free. Men for years now have been talking about war and peace, but no longer can we just talk about it. No longer is it a choice between violence and nonviolence. The only choice is nonviolence or non-existence. That's where we are today. You know, I was in New York City autographing the first book that I'd written, and I was sitting there with my head down writing, and a demented black woman came up to me. I don't know, all I remember her saying was, "Are you Martin Luther King Jr.?" And I had my head down right, and I said, "Yes." The next thing I know, I felt something beating me on my chest. That woman had stabbed me. It was a dark Saturday afternoon. I was rushed to the Harlem Hospital, and the tip of the blade was on the edge of my aorta. It came out in the New York Times, and if I had merely sneezed, I would have died. Well, the doctors that went in and they took the blade out, sewed me back up. They allowed me to move around in a wheelchair. And then they allowed me to read some of the letters that came in. Letters came in from all over the world. I got a letter from the president and the vice president. Forgotten what those letters said. I got a letter from the governor. Forgotten what that letter said, but there was another letter. A letter from a young girl from the White Plains High School, and I'll never forget it. And the letter said simply, "Dear Dr. King, I'm a 9th grade student at the White Plains High School. And I read about your suffering and about all the things you're going through, and I also read about in the New York Times that if you had merely sneezed, you would have died. And although it should not matter, I'd like to mention that I'm a white girl. And I'm writing simply to say, dear Dr. King, I'm happy that you didn't sneeze." Well, I too am happy that I didn't sneeze, because if I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1960. When young people began sitting in at lunch counters, and I knew as they were sitting in, they were really standing up for the best in the American dream. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around in 1961, when black people from Birmingham, Alabama, arose the consciousness of this nation and brought into being the Civil Rights Bill. If I had sneezed, I would have been around to see men and women straighten their backs up. And whenever a woman or man straightens their back, they're going somewhere, because a man can't ride your back unless it's bent. If I had sneezed, I would have been around to tell America about a dream that I had. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been down in Selma to see the great movement there. So I too am happy that I didn't sneeze. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We got some difficult days ahead. And I don't mind, like anybody, I like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will, and He has allowed me to go up the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I might not get there with you, but I'm here tonight to tell you that we as a people will get to the promised land. I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord, and His truth is marching on. Thank you very much. When I was a little boy, I was an energetic little boy. And whatever my sister Christine did, that's what I wanted to do. She was my older sister, and I looked up to her. I was even able to convince my parents to allow me to go to school a year earlier so that I could attend Christine.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountain to the prairie, through the ocean, wide with love. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
One day, the teacher said, ML, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I stood up proudly and I said,
I want to be a preacher, like my father and my grandfather. I learned all those big words like they did. I learned a new one just the other day. Rambunctious. R-A-M-B-U-N-C-T-I-O-U-S. It's a word that describes a person that can't keep still and is always getting into something.
That day the teacher said, see you all tomorrow, boys and girls. Try not to be too rambunctious. When we got home from school, our grandmother always had milk and cookies waiting for us. I love my grandmother. I love my whole family. My mother, my father, we lived with my grandmother and my grandfather in their big house. My little brother, A.D., my sister, Christina, but especially my grandmother. And in the summer times, oh man, that was the best time of all. Come, experience the summertime with the King family.
Summertime, and the living is easy. Fish are jumping, and the cotton is high. Your daddy's rich, and your mama's good looking. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. One of these mornings, you're gonna wake up singing. Then you'll spread your wings and fly to the sky. Until next evening, nothing's scared of you. With mommy and daddy standing by.
We were having a church picnic, and my grandma was in charge of the food. They had chicken and potato salad, corn on the cob, and they had hot dogs, hamburgers, all kinds of food all spread out over the table. And the boys and the men were down playing softball, and up here they were having a potato sack race. But I was just standing there, admiring my grandma. She was such a proud woman. And she saw me standing there watching her. And she came over to me and she said to me, this is what she said. She said, there's my baby. Come here, baby. I love you. And she held me so tight. It felt so good. When God puts a woman in your life, be it your mom or your grandmom or your aunt or your sister or your wife or any woman, it's a precious gift. And the love you share, it'll be with you always. You know, it kind of reminds me of the love my wife Coretta has. I graduated from high school at the age of 15 years old and went on to Morehouse College. My father and my grandfather had attended Morehouse. So naturally, they were proud when I attended Morehouse and graduated at the age of 18. Went on to Crozier Seminary in Chester, Pennsylvania, and received my master's degree. And went on to Boston University and received my doctorate degree by the age of 20. And that's where I met Coretta. When I first saw Coretta, she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen in my life. The way she held her head, the way she looked at you as if she was looking into your soul. And when she sang, it was just like a voice from heaven.
I sing because I'm happy, and I sing because I am free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me.
Evelyn Jackson. After we had been dating a while, I said to her, Coretta, there are 4 things that I look for in a wife. Intelligence, character, a sense of humor, and beauty. Coretta, you have all of these things. Coretta, make me the happiest man in the world and be my wife. Coretta, will you marry me? We got married that year. Then the fun began. We had children together, 4 of them, and we spent time together. Come, while Matthew shares what it's like to have somebody stand by you as we look at the King family photo album.